Good morning. I'm Cynthia Murray with North Bay Leadership Council. I'm very pleased to present the Business Edge briefing today that will tell us 5 things I've learned with our special guest, Helen Russell. We really appreciate you joining us. For many years, North Bay Leadership Council has partnered with Dominican University of California's Institute for Leadership Studies. Together, we have welcomed business owners and organizational leaders to share business strategies and techniques for businesses to be resilient and competitive in the marketplace. Our sponsor, Bank of Marin, has been for 30 years a leading business and community bank in the San Francisco Bay Area. We also want to thank our community partners, the San Rafael Chamber of Commerce, the CEO Club of Marin, Marin Small Business Development Center, Marin Economic Forum, and the U.S. Commercial Service. Our speaker today, Helen Russell, is one of a kind. She is co-founder and chief executive officer of Equator Coffees. As a certified B Corp since 2011, Equator is a demonstrative leader in sustainable practices. Equator connects global coffee farming communities and coffee lovers, and aren't we all? They believe every step in their supply chain should be equitable, sustainable, and beneficial for all involved. They call it the chain of well-being. Today, Helen will be discussing the 5 things she's learned about leading her business and employees through these challenging times of COVID-19 and many other things that developed in 2020. Please join me in welcoming Helen Russell. Good morning, Helen.
Good morning, Cynthia. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here. I want to thank Dr. Lucy. I also want to thank yourself and everybody on the Dominican team for pulling this together, and Mark Meeker, who is the author of Extended Sessions. So I'm excited to speak with you today. We're a year out from where we were. So what I'd like to do is take us on a journey a little bit, if I could. Let me take you back to my childhood. Let me take you back 26 years. Let me take you back a year ago, and let me take you back to today. My childhood was growing up in Boston, in a small town outside of Boston, Medford, Massachusetts, and my parents were blue-collar workers. My mom worked for the phone company, and my dad worked for the post office. I was the youngest of 4 children. The expectation for me was to finish high school, get married, and move nearby. And I had a different expectation for myself. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I wanted to move to California. And I moved to California 31 years ago when I met my partner and co-founder, Brooke McDonald. And she and I started the company in 1995. So let me take you back to 1995 when you've got 3 women starting a business in a garage in Corte Madera. And I was out on my bike the other day and I rode by it. It's right before Nugget Markets. There's a liquor store and the building is in the back. And Brooke found that building. She bought a little coffee roaster, and she asked me to come in and do the sales, and she asked Maureen to come in and do the operations. Here we are, 3 young women in our early 30s wanting to start a coffee roasting business. And to think about where we are today and the journey that we have taken, it's been remarkable. So let's go back to, a year ago, January. We were flying high. We had offices in New York roasting coffee. We were roasting coffee in LA. We had our roasting plant here in San Rafael. We flew everybody in for our company meeting. There was amazing esprit de corps. There were blue skies ahead. We had 8 retail stores open. We're about to open 3 more. We had over 400 wholesale customers. And we had 95 employees. And we were celebrating the year to come and what we were all going to do together. As I always refer to it as Equator 3.0. Well, we all know what happened, right? Let me take you back to a year ago today when we shut down for 2 weeks before the governor had asked us to, because we were reading about what was happening and we were obviously very concerned. We were roasting 24 to 26,000 pounds a week. And overnight, when we closed, we went down to 5,000 pounds a week. The staff went down to 95 employees. We closed New York. We closed LA. We were in complete shock in terms of what was going on. I've learned many things in the last 12 months, a lot about myself, our company, our customers, the amazing light, the glaring light that has been shined upon us on a system that lacks justice, equity, diversity, and equality. And it really shook us to our core. So that brings me to today. That brings me to the 5 things that I personally have learned, the leadership team has learned, the employees that we have, the company has learned. And we learned probably 50 things, but to boil it down to 5 things allowed me to kind of go back and really revisit the last 12 months. And I spent the last 2 days looking back and talking to the team in terms of the things that we had to do. And the most important thing we had to do right out of the gate, and I can remember, it was probably, it actually was March 17th. It was St. Patty's Day when I went for a hike right here in Homestead Valley. And I called my CFO and I said, Jeff, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I mean, I'm in shock about this. And he said, Helen, the companies that conserve cash the fastest will come out of this thing. As soon as he said that, I knew that, I had to wake up the next day and make some very, very difficult decisions. Laying off people fast when we rarely would ever let anybody go because we're so good at hiring people. The immediate first step was to cut the salaries of ownership, which was Brooke and I and Maureen, and then reduce salaries for leadership. Simultaneously, all our director levels and team went down to 3 days a week. Every person in the company felt the impact of the layoffs and the reduction in salaries. The message that we put out was, this action must be taken with empathy, compassion, and a path forward. I mean, some of our folks were just starting out in their coffee careers. I had 12 people in wholesale. I had a wholesale department. I eliminated the wholesale department, the service department. I had to do that overnight. There were conversations that we had to have. I was on every call for everyone that we laid off. The other thing that the pandemic has provided for us, for any business, is this sense of clarity. A clarity you cannot find in the good times. You can't find that clarity in the good times because you have an emotional connection. We had what was called Equator Pantry. We were making our own quiches and making some of our own baked goods. We had this incredible store in the Tenderloin at the Warfield that we were emotionally tied to because of opening that store and engaging the local community and hiring from within. And Brooke and I were so emotionally connected to that store, although it wasn't making any money, right? And then the service department and the account managers. So we immediately had to eliminate all 4 of those things. And then we went into negotiating with 12 landlords, right? And telling our story. One thing I will say is that, we've been lucky on so many levels, right? Yes, conserving cash, cutting cash immediately. But the importance of investing in a finance department. We have a, finance team that allows us to have amazing financial hygiene. And it allowed us to put together, remember when the PPP, the payroll protection program came out? Well, there was a scramble. And I can remember calling everybody I knew at the bank that we were using. We have since switched to the Bank of Marin, which I didn't know was a sponsor of this event until I read about it. We switched to Bank of Marin because we wanted to be with the local bank and have a connection in order to get, our PPP loan. And you think about it, there's so many small businesses that don't have the finance team to put together that application, which was quite rigorous. And we got in the last day of that night. I got it at 10 p.m. that night. It closed at midnight. We got our first PPP loan, which was just a raft that we could sort of all hold on to because we were so desperate. Again, our revenues have been cut in half. And so, mom and pops, when I think about the mom and pops, they don't have that. right? There's been over 400,000 businesses that have closed this year alone, right? And we were able to, because we've been in business for so long, 26 years, because we've had good financial hygiene, because we have a good team, we were able to make those tough decisions. We had an amazing, we have an amazing HR department. And to get on a call with all those young people and say, maybe the best thing for us to do is let you go today so you can file for unemployment. So when we get this PPP loan, we can bring you back. And to talk them through it and walk them through it and extend their benefits until they got on their feet. And that's what we did. And as a B Corp, that's what you do. It's all about stakeholder value. It's all about the people and how you protect your people, care for your people. And that status of being a B Corp gave us our moorings to make sure that the number one thing that we would do is protect our people as best that we could, to give the company the opportunity to stay afloat for folks to be able to come back to and be extremely transparent and explain that to the team, explain it to the team so they understood it, because it was so difficult for them as young people to hear that news that, look, this is not personal. I remember getting a call from my head of my service department, and he said to me, Helen, I have 3 children, and you've made this decision so quickly. Don't you want to see how this is going to turn out? And I said, you know what? I don't have that opportunity. I can't see how this is going to turn out. None of us can. But what I do know is that you're extremely talented as a service technician. You will land on your feet. I will move heaven and earth to put you in a position in service with whether it's Starbucks or Pete's or a competitor. So you have work, but you have to trust me that we have to do this in order to keep the company afloat and have a place for you and others to come back to. And that turned into him moving his family down to San Luis Obispo. And now he has restarted. He's got his own service company and he's doing just fine. That's 12 months later. But at that moment, for him to trust me, with the science and how we felt about where we would be, was difficult. But I knew that we had to do it. And I knew that the people that we laid off in wholesale and in retail would land on their feet because they were young people, they were resilient people, they trusted us. So cutting that cash and cutting it quickly was the most important thing that we learned, and how to do it in a way that people feel emotionally in one piece. Because it was, as we all know, those first weeks were very, very scary. We showed up at the roastery. We never closed the roastery. People showed up, but there was nothing to roast. Going from 24,000 pounds down to 5,000 pounds and putting in systems to do physical distancing and having schedules so people wouldn't show up at the same time, and assuring people and everybody looking at each other, am I next? Are they going to let me go next? And being out in the field, I was out in the field, Maureen was out in the field, Brooke was out in the field, JP was out in the field, visiting the roastery and assuring people like, look, we're together, we're going to work on this, and we're going to get to the other side. Trust us, we will do what's best for all of us so we have a place to come back to. And those were very, very emotional times, difficult times, because when you are a B Corp, when you are women owned, when you have employees, they're family, right? They're family. Businesses are different today. People look to you more than just a paycheck. They look to you as, someone that they can look up to, that you're going to do the right thing. And to have that trust that we had with them was really, it made all the difference in the world that we had that trust. And the trust is what would be challenged as the months unfolded. That'll bring me to sort of the prosaic number 2 that I learned, right? The most important thing was that, technology, right? Technology, you cannot be a successful company today without technology. I don't care if you're making cookies, you're making, bread. Technology is really an important piece of what needs to be part of the business. And the biggest challenge was, how do you take Helen, how do you take me from standing out in front of one of our stores in downtown Mill Valley or at the surf shop, and how do you take my storytelling and my delivering of waffles and putting stickers on little children and carrying them around where their parents say, oh, that's Helen, she'll bring them back. She's letting us have our breakfast. How do you take me and put me online? How do you do that? I was like, I don't know how to do that, right? How do I do that, right? I'm in a straitjacket now. And fortunately, we had just completed our new website in, 2019. And, we basically put me on a digital platform, put the company on a digital platform, and how we did that with technology was, after closing the stores for the first 2 weeks, to really assess a safe path forward, we were lucky because we were beta testing a mobile ordering app, which is something that we really put off because, that we wanted to hand you that cup of coffee. We wanted to make sure that that beverage was perfectly crafted. And the idea of leaving it up on a counter with a receipt under it with your name, not knowing when you were going to come, was just not in our DNA, right? It wasn't in sort of our embrace and our hug. But we saw that Starbucks proved that people wanted the ability to order mobile. And thankfully, we were in a beta test in our Larkspur store on the mobile app. So, between testing a mobile app, having just finished the website in 2019 to take advantage of holiday sales, those two pieces of technology is what really saved us as we marched forward in the days ahead through March and April. So what did we do? We really focused on social media and marketing. How are we going to stay in touch with our customers, stay connected? So we really embraced virtual events. I didn't know a year ago, if you asked me what Instagram Live was, I couldn't tell you what Instagram Live is. But now I know what Instagram Live is, and I know how important it has become. It was a lifeline, right? Because, our wholesale went to zero overnight. All that coffee that we were sending to Google, 1,000 pounds a week, Twitter, LinkedIn, Slack, Twitch, zero. They're now all working at home, right? And the ownership and the food service companies that were, making breakfast, lunch, and dinner for these folks went away. So how do we engage those employees at home? And it was Instagram Live. And again, we're thinking about all the ways that we can keep the roastery working, right? We're thinking about it. I'm like calling, the head of Bon Appetit, the head of Guggenheimer, the head of Aramark, and saying, look, all your clients are working from home. Let's put together a budget so you can send them coffee at home. Then we can get on, on Instagram Live and show them how to brew coffee at home. They're used to walking in and having people have coffee laid out for them. So we were desperate with technology to learn how to stay connected, because we knew with those folks working from home, it was going to go to zero, and it did go to zero. And we needed to stay top of mind. And that's how we did it with Instagram Live. We also did some fun things. We started what was called a Tiger Collective, right? So think about a tiger collective, it's a streak. So we went out to athletes, musicians, artists, all the folks that we knew that loved Equator. And we looked and we said, anyone who's got over 50,000 Instagram followers, we want to work with those folks so they can get the word out to their people who follow them about Equator, right? And so that worked really, really well. Tiger Collective, they're a bunch of brand ambassadors, and we're doing a spotlight series with them now, but we never would have done that if it wasn't for this pandemic. So having the technology platform, right? allowed us to stay connected and ways to think about it. So I get on my bike in April. No, it was March. It was sort of towards the end of March, and I'm riding over the Golden Gate Bridge on my bike, and the wind's blowing, and I'm just trying to clear my head to think about, like, how do we get back to where we were? How do we think about this? Who can we ask? Who can help us? And so I immediately thought about Chef Kren, Dominic Kren, and I knew she had over 400,000 Instagram followers. And then I just thought about Tyler Florence. Tyler Florence was just at our roasting plant on March 14th, the Thursday before we shut down, talking about his Wolf It Down platform. We put together the Wolf It Down blend. And then I thought, Tyler's got over 400,000 followers. And then I thought about Chef Keller. He's got over 400,000 followers. We also have coffee for him. So you're thinking out of the box in terms of how to do things. So I get home, I get on the phone, Kren picks up, and I said, look, we just put together your, Atelier Kren blend, right? Hospitality has been crushed. Let's put together some sort of donation component to your blend that will allow you, we'll do $2 a bag, $3 a bag, whatever you want to do, right? And she says, that'd be great, because I have, our hospitality crew, I have a 501c, let's try it. So we did it. The first day, there's a photo of her, if you go back on Instagram, holding on to her Atelier Kren 2 blends. And we sold like 800 bags of coffee out of the gate. And I thought, oh my God, we have something here. So then I went to Tyler. Tyler was like, of course, I'll do it. And then Keller said, yes, let's do it. And all of them were able to raise money. Tyler Florence actually raised $10,000 by selling our coffee online and donated that money to Restaurants Care. So when you're hit with something like this, you're constantly thinking about, how can I keep the roastery busy? How can I leverage my contacts? How can we use technology, right, to bring our coffee into people's homes when they can't come to see us or they can't go to the office to enjoy it? And that's what we did, because we've got, when you go from delivering 100 pounds to a restaurant or driving 1,000 pounds down to Google, then you have another strategic operational issue. Now you've got these little red 12-ounce bags all over the roasting plant, right? And you don't have the mechanization to fill them all. So you bring back your people, and they're rolling down bags, box, UPS. And they were all over the roastery. And the team was like, we don't care. We just want to work, right? We just want to work. So I said, if you want to work, and you want to be here, we are going to sell 12-ounce bags. We're going to move it, right? We're going to move it. And with the Chef's Collection, we were able to reach a lot of folks. With our Tiger Collective and our ambassadors, we were able to reach a lot of folks. With our Instagram Live brewing events, we were able to reach a lot of folks. So we started to build our digital platform. And fortunately, we had a new website that allowed us to put together a robust platform with subscriptions and other things to keep people engaged. So number one was conserving cash. Number two was having this technology platform in place, right? When I think about pre-pandemic, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but communication was number three. Number one was conserving cash quickly. So fast that you didn't even have time to think about it. Number two was, how do we take the technology that we have and now we grow it so we can reach more people? And number three was communication. What I learned about the importance of communication. You think you're communicating as a B Corp. You think you're communicating as a CEO. You think you're communicating because you're women-owned. You think you've been doing great. Oh my God, I'm communicating. I just flew out 200 people. We had this amazing party and I'm communicating. I'm sending emails, thank you letters. We weren't communicating, we weren't communicating. So here we are. The importance of communication externally through our platforms and internally to our teams. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We're in the middle of all these folks that we sell coffee to closing, right? Closing down. And now what happens? The murder of George Floyd takes place May 25th. It plays out in our living rooms over and over and over again. And we are just devastated by what we have seen. You know, businesses are closing, livelihoods are being crushed. There's so much uncertainty. And now we have this entire movement that's going to take place. You know, we have a very, very young, diverse staff. And after seeing that, they were frightened. They felt unsafe. Our job is to reassure them. How can we reassure them about something that we are experiencing on a whole different level ourselves? You know, so what do? We had to sort of get together and think about, this is frightening for people of color, our people of color that work for us at our retail stores. The young people that came back with this frictionless app so they wouldn't have to take cash, right? And feel safe in our stores, make sure our customers were safe. And now we've got young people of color that are seeing live what we learned about in the 60s. They're seeing it now. They're seeing it in a way that they've never seen it before. So we sat down and we put together, you know, town halls for internally. And so we could really provide a safe place to discuss what's going on in the streets and making sure that the values of the company, you know, are front and center. And one of the things that our director of HR said, it'll be very important if we send out, you know, a survey to the team. And I said, really? She said, no, and I said, okay, it'll be good to see what they're thinking. She said, no, you're not going to know who's thinking what. We're going to have an anonymous survey. I said, an anonymous survey? That's interesting, you know? Okay, because here I am, I'm out in the stores all the time, meeting with them, hugging them, telling them stories, you know, hanging out with them, running orders out front, doing all the things that they do, you know, wiping down tables, sweeping. Okay, anonymous, that'll be interesting. And she said, our director of HR said, that'll be a way for us to really acknowledge them, their emotions, and sort of what they're thinking, you know, and it was really at that time, it was everything to really acknowledge our people's emotions, right? Their fears, their loss, and to do that without judgment. And I felt that we were doing that. But then what I learned was when we got the surveys back and we had our first town hall, the first question that we got was, why are there no people of color in ownership and on the leadership team? And I was like, oh my goodness. Being white women who founded an LGBT certified company was just not enough, because we have privilege. And to be honest, I never thought about it that way. I know I have privilege. But being LGBT wasn't enough, and we could do better, and we needed to do better. So what we did was, you know, we were very raw, we were very honest, and we acknowledged our own shortcomings as a company. We discussed a lot of expectations that, you know, we can't meet, but we will do our very, very best. You know, eradicating systemic racism is something that we all have seen does not happen overnight. And it's something that we needed to make sure that the team knew that we were very serious about, and we needed to communicate that to them because they were on the front lines. They were on the front lines. They were people of color. They were wrestling with the public when they didn't want to wear a mask, right? So we promised to do better. And that's a journey. That's a one foot in front of the other to do better. You know, we read Tiffany Jana's book, Erasing Institutional Bias. We put together an entire library for the leadership, the ownership, and for the staff. We paid for classes, volunteerism. We had speakers come in. We did a lot of things. And as I sit here today and speaking with all of you, it's just, I'm excited to get on the other side of this even more so we can do better, because we have a lot of folks that are first-time immigrants. I mean, a couple of our general managers are, you know, it's their first year in this country. And how can we protect them? And how can we make sure that what's going on right now in terms of the targeting of the Asian community doesn't come into our space, which is quite possible that it could? And how do we plan for that? And how do we talk about that? And what's the internal communication around that? And how are we thinking about that? So the communication has been something that we really dialed up because of all the things that have gone on in the country with social justice not being there the way we thought it would be, lack of equity, you know, really the diversity quotient. What were we going to do in terms of filling the ranks? And hiring people would be the best way to approach that. The best way to hire people is to get financially viable again. So it actually really motivated us to really come out of this thing in a way that we're going to build a different kind of company. We've been so proud of what we've built for the last 26 years, and we're going to be very proud 2 years from now that we got back to the 2019 numbers. But as we go forward to hiring people and staffing, and as we open down in Los Angeles, the folks that we're going to try to bring to that table are people that want to be in our rim, people of color, people that reflect who we are as a nation and who we are as a people. And so this will give us that opportunity and the motivation to build the company back in a way that we can be way more inclusive than we've ever been. You know, it's no longer, well, you know, we're a Marin-based company, so a lot of folks don't want to come over to Marin. That doesn't fly. If I heard that now, I'd say, you never said that. I did say it 2 years ago, right? Shame on me. Shame on me. So, you know, the expectations of leadership have changed, right? You know, the communication piece. And then, you know, we've talked about, you know, conserving cash, right? It's so prosaic, but it's like had to happen. We talked about technology. We've talked about being an omni-channel business, which I'll talk, you know, we haven't talked about that, but the importance of being omni-channel. When we started this company, the top four were wholesale, we had grocery, we had digital, and we had no retail. 8 years ago, we added retail, right? And now wholesale has gone to zero, so it drops to fourth place. Retail is now number one. Digital is number two. Grocery is number three. And wholesale is number four. So having diversified revenue streams, we have learned, I have learned, is one of the most important things that we have done. And again, 8 years ago, when La Boulangerie was purchased by Starbucks, you know, we didn't have any retail stores, and it flipped us into having retail. And thankfully, thank gosh, we're in retail, because now with 6 stores open, 1 is permanently closed, the Warfield. The LinkedIn building in the city, they're telling me end of summer. So we're not going to get that back. And then we're going to open up more stores. So we basically flipped the revenue streams, right? And now the retail is something that we will focus more on because we can control more of it, right? But there's still, when you think about all the protests of the summer, and then August, the fires, right? And then Equator has to close down because of the air quality, right? Because we're thinking about our people, right? And the air quality has fallen below a certain point. I'm looking across the street, Pete's is open, Starbucks is open, Equator's closed. So we sit in the middle. We're not a mom and pop where we need to go work to make our rent. We're not a publicly traded company where profits are more important. We are right in the middle as a mid-sized company that's a B Corp that is always going to put our people first. And there were days when that was very, very challenging because there was no money coming in, zero. But by doing that and by living that, those values of being a B Corp and valuing everybody along that supply chain and our frontline workers and our staff that trust us and shows up. And when that air quality went down, we said, nope, it's not a day for you to be out. Luckily, it's such a tough decision, but I actually got emails from customers saying, I'm so glad you did that because it wasn't safe to be out. And we paid those folks when we closed because that's who we are. So, luckily we had the digital platform, we had digital. Grocery grew exponentially, right? So digital and grocery were growing. Retail was limping along and wholesale was zero. But at least we had those diversified revenue streams and those levers that we could pull on. So cash was the most important lesson. Technology was the most important lesson. Having a diversified omni-channel business, super important lesson. And communicating internally and externally to your staff in a way that is authentic so they know that you are with them when they call you and say, I can't be in this meeting, my child's having a meltdown, I can't be on Zoom. That's fine. That's okay. That's okay. That's, you know what I mean? It's like, it flips from, you just become this sort of, you think of your team as your family, right? But we're all living in this together. We all get it together. We all understand it together. And the message that we sent out is that in order to keep the company afloat, these are the things that we need to do. If you can help us do those things, we will get to the other side. And it's going to be a sacrifice for all of us. And you need to trust us that we will follow the science and we will do the right things because of who we are as a company. And we did those things. We're doing those things. We can do better on a lot of other things. So having that diversification and revenue streams will continue to be a savior for us. And on the digital side, I never thought I'd sell on Amazon, but we're selling coffee on Amazon, right? Never thought we'd sell coffee at Good Eggs. We're selling coffee at Good Eggs. Anything that we can do to get coffee roasted out the door into people's homes in order to keep this company afloat is what we're going to do, because that's what we owe to ourselves, to our people that work for us, for the path forward. And, Cynthia, we're going to be one of the lucky ones. We will come out of this thing because of all the things that we did, with cash, technology, omni-channel, the communication. And then finally, one of the fifth lesson, a big lesson, the expectations that you put upon leadership as an owner is that we will meet this moment. We will meet this moment. We will meet it together. We will talk about it weekly. We will talk about it daily. We will meet this moment and we will come out the other side together. And that is the expectation of us as a company, as a people, of the leaders in this company. And the communication to all of us is that we will meet this moment because we have We're seasoned. We've been around for 26 years. We are a seasoned group. We've been through 9/11. We've been through recessions. We've been through green coffee costs doubling and having to refi our house to get the company back on track. We just, last year, flying to New York, the new Hudson Yards, installing all that beautiful equipment for the tack room for Chef Keller, and doing the training at Bouchon Bakery and looking out on the Hudson River. And then all that equipment comes back and it's closed. Talking to Chef Keller about Rockefeller Center. Well, you'll surely keep Bouchon at Rockefeller Center open, won't you? Yes, that's what we're going to try to do. Next phone call. We can't socially distance in there appropriately. We're closing Rockefeller Center. All the equipment comes back. Well, Time Warner for sure will stay open, won't it, on Columbus Circle? We've been there for 12 years. Per se is open, right? Yes, Helen, we'll stay. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that'll work out. And then Bouchon, add Time Warner, and the cafe close. All the equipment comes back. So everybody has been touched. It has been an epic, enormous, cascading effect. Standing in the living room, watching CNN and seeing 86,000 fellow souls have been taken from us, thinking surely this can't go to 100,000. And now it's over 500,000. So the pivoting, the adaption on the retail side, going from the app to taking a credit card to going to cash with the gloves and the, calling Karen over at E&O, who's a friend, calling Susan, saying, Susan, I need this product. You got to give it to us, right? And she'd be like, she did something special for us and we got our hand sanitizer, right? Having those connections, you just start dialing like anyone you've ever met, anything you ever know. What do I need? How can I do? What can we do forward? And, and it's about, having those relationships and having the expectations and being around for a long period of time and being clear in terms of, and it's interesting, right? As I sit here today at 60 years old, and having started that company in our early 30s, and what the truth was for us in that early morning of our lives, I always talk about that, and here we are, in the early evening, and coming through something that we never thought we would have ever experienced. And I always think of astronauts because, in business, if you're an astronaut, it's like, what's the worst thing that can happen? What's the worst thing that can happen? What's the worst thing that can happen? And it's like, a pandemic? We never would have thought that. Who thought that? A pandemic, right? We're fires, yes. Earthquakes, yes. Mudslides, yes. A pandemic that affected the entire world. And so many people lost their lives and their livelihoods have been crushed, and it's going to take us years to get back. We are motivated to tell that story about how we did it and how we got as many people through unharmed as we possibly could. And I've learned more than 5 lessons, I can tell you that. But what I have learned is humility and gratitude for all the people that work in this company and all the hard work and dedication and the trust. We have people working with us that are from 18 to 65, right? We're a multi-generational company. We're a heritage brand. And it says a lot when your people trust you. And that is probably the greatest gift and the biggest burden. But it is what gets us up every day and fires us up to come through this in a way where we can talk about it and we'll never forget it. And the people that work for us today, if they work for us in the future or not, they can look back and say, that's the kind of company I want to work for. That's where the level set bar was. They took care of us. They closed down when they didn't know before the governor told them because they were worried about our safety. They closed down when the fires, when you couldn't see. They closed down. They extended our healthcare benefits until we were able to land on our feet. They put us first. and we're going to put them first. And that's why we're going to make it to the other side.
Helen, this has just been phenomenal. It's such a joy to be able to hear your story and listen to you about what you've learned. And obviously there's so much more to you could share. But I think one of the key things that I know you've said is your competitive edge has always been in your people. And you just said it, you know, how you take care of your people has really been one of your major reasons for success. And I think that is couldn't be underlined enough, but it makes me think for you to be able to take care of people, you've got to take care of yourself.
That's right.
You know, if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy. So,
True.
I mean, you've been through almost a traumatizing situation where you had to pump everybody up. You had to keep being the trust builder and have that confidence that you're going to get through this. How did you do that personally? Especially, you know, you say the company is like a family, but you live with, you are family in your business, you know, and it's like your work isn't out of your house, it's with you. And how do you do that?
Well, you know, you do it, you know, thankfully Brooke is my partner and is so supportive, and Maureen, who's our executive vice president, is my best friend. So, you know, we hold each other up. And fortunately, you know, when one is down, the other one's up. So it's very rarely you get us all three down. Maybe you did for a moment at that initial stage, but boy, we just cheerleaded on each other and took care of each other. And, you know, my joy is cycling, the freedom of getting out there, and it hits all my things, my sort of my athleticism and my social connection, and bringing folks to the stores on the bike. And even though we're all outside, buying people egg sandwiches and just seeing how happy they are because of Equator, you know, that's how I've done it. You know, those moments, you know, I remember when, you know, the last election, and there was this huge gathering, just, you know, just spontaneous gathering. Everybody came down to Equator at Miller Avenue to celebrate. It just says something about how our stores, you know, sort of run through people's lives here and how important they are. And somehow we've been able to sort of, you know, create this community of connection and kindness and be able to deliver this memorable experience that people feel good around us. And that keeps me going to want to continue to spread that goodness, right? And to be able to do it with the retail stores is just what I love. And we've got a couple of stores we're going to be announcing soon that's going to blow your mind. And I can't wait to be out there with my cycling groups and the kids on their bikes. And it's just going to be so fun because we all have been through something quite traumatic. And having people around you that love you and support you, I couldn't ask for anything else. And to have to go through this at this particular period in our lives has been, I think I'd rather be where I am today going through it, because I just have that ability to look back and to know that we've been in difficult places before, and we can work to get out of this thing, and then also helping other folks get out of it. So I'm just very lucky, right? I have a lot of support from my leadership team, from the board, from Brooke and Maureen, you know, not to talk about the bank, but let's talk about, you know, having, like, you know, when you can pick up the phone and talk to the CEO of Bank of Marin, that says something, right? It's like the world just got smaller, really, really small.
So one thing I keep hearing from employers is that they're valuing more and more emotional intelligence in the people they hire. Yep. And you have sort of had that weave through everything you said, that emotional intelligence that you have and that you sought out in the people on your staff. Can you talk a little bit more about how you're able to assess that when you're looking to hire someone?
You know, emotional intelligence is one of the most important things that you can have, I think, as a human being. And that only comes with a lot of curiosity, right? And, you know, it's like height. You can't teach height, right? It's like, but you can, you know, you can sort of be a role model for what emotional intelligence does look like. So it's not easy to find. You find it by asking a ton of questions. Luckily, Maureen and Brooke have an enormous amount of emotional intelligence. And, you know, because we've been in the trenches for 30 years and because we care about each other, the leadership team and the board that we currently have has a lot of emotional intelligence, but looking for people who have a curiosity. And I think, Cynthia, the most important thing, it's sort of, if you were to see a magic carpet sort of flying through the sky, and what would be written on it today is that empathy is what binds us. Empathy, that ability to put yourself in somebody else's position. And that's something that we do not see anymore. We do not see empathy. And for me, everybody on this team, they must have empathy. They can learn emotional intelligence, but if they don't have empathy, right, then this will be a difficult place for you to work. Because I will remind you that that young person, that woman with the child and carrying 4 drinks could use a little help, right? Notice, have empathy, put yourself in another person's position. And a lot of our team on the retail side has been in many, many positions. You know, young people have a lot of weather, and it's our job as seasoned executives, ownership, leadership, is to help them in those stormy times, to show them how to nest in the gale. How do you nest in the gale? And you do that by surrounding yourself with folks that have empathy and emotional intelligence. And you're always looking for that, you know, and I want to just constantly hug all of my people and thank them, because everybody's on their own journey. Everybody's learning every day. And we sometimes don't know how we're going to react, but they know that we won't let them fall. You
I
know?
love that, nesting in the gale. That's a beautiful image to hold in your mind.
Yeah.
So some of the things you talked about, you know, your ability to pivot, your agility, your amazing, shining entrepreneurial spirit. You talked about some of the changes you made to get through the storm. And I'm wondering, because I think you would agree, we don't want to go back to whatever the normal was. We
No,
want to get to this next normal. We don't want to do things the way we did, because we know now that there's things we need to do better. So
yeah.
what do you think is going to stay in some of the changes? Like, do you foresee like staying more in your technology lane and those some of the things that you've done to weather storm, are they going to be permanent? And maybe are you even thinking more products, more entrepreneurism?
Well, a lot of, you know, everything has been fast forwarded about 10 years. And we see that in grocery. We see that in, you know, DoorDash, you know, having food delivered to the house. We see that in grocery being delivered to the house. I mean, it would have taken 10 years to get to where we are today. I think the biggest thing that is going to change, and what we're seeing with a lot of the tech CEOs and a lot of other CEOs, is that folks can work at home. You know, you can work at home. But what we've also seen is that people would love to come out and connect 2 to 3 days, maybe not 5, right? But they definitely want to come out and connect. So I think working from home is going to be with us for a very, very, very long time. When you've got Jack Dorsey of Twitter saying, which I wasn't happy to hear, because that told me that the 100 pounds a week I was sending over to Twitter is gone, that they can all work at home. But then immediately I'm like, well, there's 100, you know, there's people at home, so they need to order a product at home. So how do we reach them? So you immediately start to think, well, let's get the coffee into them. So look, there's a lot of opportunities that will come out of COVID. It's hard to even imagine them and think about them now, but working from home is definitely one that we will see not go away. How we think about grocery, how we think about gathering is definitely here to stay. I mean, you know, there'll be a lot of growth in education, I think, as well. You know, the educational system will benefit from all the things that have happened. We've learned so much, and there's so many folks, you know, there's so many young people that have been on Zoom. I mean, I don't have any children. I just can't even imagine. I've been on Zoom with my team, and the cat goes by, and the baby comes by, and the dog starts barking, and everything starts going on. And you know, I kind of like it. I think it makes people real. It's like it's their real lives that they're in, and it gives me more empathy. And I'm not as hard charging as like, you got to be in the office. That's the best way to connect and talk to people. No, you can do your job from home for sure. as long as you're doing your job. The bad part is that you end up doing your job all day, right? You know, from the 7 a.m. and then 7 o'clock, you have no idea of like what time it is because you just keep working because you can't, you know, you do some laundry, you go out and pick up some dry cleaning or go get gas and come back and you're still doing it. It's back to 8 o'clock. So I think those things with what we see with the delivery, with the Door Dashes and the Instacarts, the technology aspect of people wanting, you know, sort of frictionless getting food at home very, very quickly. That's never going to change. I mean, that's here to stay. And again, working from home is going to stay as well. So we have to think about, okay, if that's true, which we know it is true. We were just down on, we just visited Microsoft last week, their new campus down in Mountain View. And we met with those folks over a year ago. And, you know, super excited about it because one of the cafes we're going to be featuring our coffee. And we're still going to open down there in 2 months, but people are only coming back 2 days a week. So it's going to be very, very different. But when they do come back, they're going to be so excited that they have a coffee shop and they can gather. It's so different than being in their home. So so we need to sort of think about how we pick up that other piece of revenue, which is getting them to order it at home. So it's definitely amazing. It's something I think about all day long. I'm always constantly reading because you're looking for opportunities, right, to sell coffee. So we have instant coffee. We have ready to drink coffee, right? We have, you know, 5-pound bags of coffee. We've got 2-pound bags of coffee. We've got pre-ground coffee. You know, we're working, trying to get into every grocery store we can possibly get into because we want to be on the shelves. We want to build our brand. So grocery has become grocery is exponential. Mike's Bikes, they can't even keep the bikes in, right? So we're going to be selling them instant coffee, right? So you can put it in your water bottle. So everywhere I go, all I think about is how can I get more coffee out in here into the world? That has definitely changed. It's changed.
It's changed, and obviously you're keeping up with it and leading the change. What's your favorite coffee?
What is my favorite coffee? Well, you know, we own a farm in Panama called Finca Sofia. And we only get about 1,000 pounds a year, but because I planted some of that coffee and walked those fields and built that worker housing and have picked that coffee, that is probably my favorite coffee. I think it's Sophia, for sure.
Helen, thank you for sharing all of your wisdom, all of your experience, all of your authenticity and ability to lead. Your employees are lucky, your customers are lucky. We are lucky today to have had you with us, and we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cynthia. And I think there's a subscription at 30% off for anybody who purchased a ticket or not. So please order our coffee and keep our team working. I'm not shy about asking.
And we won't be shy about sharing that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Before we leave, I just want to thank all of you for attending today. I want to thank our sponsor, Bank of Marin. I want to remind you that we have some upcoming events, which is on March 30th, the Institute for Leadership Studies and Book Passages welcomes Sharon Stone on the beauty of living twice. And then on April 22nd, we have the Institute for Leadership Studies and Book Passages welcoming Heidi Kuhn, Breaking Ground. And then we have our second Business Edge briefing, where we'll present 5 things I've learned from Kara Golden, who is the founder and CEO of Hint. So
she's
please
amazing.
Make sure that you attend those events. And here's Kara's. That's Kara Golden's book.
Kara's such a great story, an amazing entrepreneur. Geez, I'll be signed up for that one.
Well, I hope you all do. Follow Helen's lead because we know it's a good lead. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.